Hi, I'm Alex, and welcome to Money Talks. This is episode number 14.
Great to be here.
In this deep dive, we're getting into the stories, the real journeys of entrepreneurs who stared down no after no and flipped it into a yes.
Yeah, those turnarounds are always fascinating.
We want to explore the struggles, the successes, and pull out those lessons, things maybe you can use too. And joining me is Sarah.
Hey, everyone. Ready to dive in.
So today, our focus is on Melanie Perkins, co-founder, CEO of Canva.
Right, Canva. It's everywhere now, isn't it, that design tool?
Exactly. Valued, get this, over $25 billion, millions, literally millions of users globally.
Which is just staggering success.
It is. But her story, it wasn't the straight lineup, not at all. What makes it so compelling, I think, is the sheer amount of rejection, the setbacks, even, dealing with self-doubt.
Absolutely. It's a perfect example of that theme, turning no into yes, overcoming real adversity.
That's what we're digging into. It's easy to see Canva now and think, wow, overnight success.
But that's rarely the case, is it? When you look closer at her early life, you see the seeds of that entrepreneurial drive.
You really do. So she grew up in Perth, Western Australia, and showed that spark pretty early.
Like how early are we talking?
14. At 14, she started her first business, selling handmade scarves.
Wow, 14, okay.
Yeah, selling them at local markets. And you have to think, that kind of early experience, it must instill something.
Definitely. The value of creativity, sure, but also just sheer determination. And maybe that feeling, that freedom and excitement, as she apparently put it, from building something yourself.
Even on a small scale like scarves, you learn about making something, selling it, getting feedback. Those fundamentals.
It's that direct loop, isn't it? Idea, creation, customer. It's powerful no matter the scale.
Totally. And that hustle, it clearly stuck with her. So fast forward a bit, she's at the University of Western Australia.
Studying. Quite a mix, wasn't it? Communications, psych, marketing.
Yeah, all of that. And to make extra money, she was tutoring design software.
Ah, okay. So teaching things like Photoshop, the big complex ones.
Exactly. Adobe Photoshop, the professional stuff. And it was right there, teaching students how to use these incredibly complex tools, that she had the big insight, the light bulb moment.
It often happens like that, doesn't it? Seeing a problem firsthand.
She saw the frustration, how complex it all was for beginners,
right.
How it made them. Well, her words were, it made them feel stupid.
That's a strong phrase. It wasn't just difficult, it was undermining their confidence.
Right, and that's key. She realized the problem wasn't the students, it was the software. Too complicated, too inaccessible.
So the vision started forming a simpler way, a design tool for everyone.
Pretty much. User-friendly, accessible, not just making it easier, but actually empowering people to create visually without feeling, intimidated.
That focus on the feeling, the user's emotion, that's often what separates good ideas from great ones. She saw the psychological barrier.
And she didn't just sit on that idea. In 2007, she and her boyfriend, now husband, Cliff Obrecht, they took the plunge. They launched their first venture.
Fusion Books.
Fusion Books, exactly. This wasn't Canva yet, but it was the first concrete step.
Kind of a test bed for the core idea, right? Simplifying design, but for a specific niche.
Precisely. School yearbooks. The idea actually came from watching her mom.
Her mother was a teacher.
Yeah, and she coordinated the school yearbook. Apparently, it took something like 800 hours using the complicated programs.
Whoa, 800 hours. That's insane.
Right. So Melanie saw that pain point up close and thought, there has to be a better way.
That personal connection again, seeing a real problem affecting someone you know, it adds fuel to the fire.
Totally. And talk about starting small. They literally operated out of her mom's living room in Duncraig.
No fancy office then?
Nope. Cliff was doing cold calls to schools, trying to get clients. Their parents were even helping with printing. It was pure bootstrap.
That really paints a picture. Resourcefulness, grit, leaning on your network. The classic startup story, really.
And it worked. Despite all the challenges, Fusion Books grew. Within 5 years, it was the biggest yearbook company in Australia.
Wow. Okay, so significant success even before Canva.
Yeah, and they expanded too, France, New Zealand. So this wasn't just a side project, it was validation. Proof that, yes, people wanted simpler design tools.
That's so important. That early win must have given them huge confidence and, crucially, a track record for what came next.
Which was Canva. Taking that core idea, simple design for everyone, and scaling it up massively.
But that transition, that wasn't easy either, was it? You mentioned rejections earlier.
Oh, yeah. Big time. Trying to get funding for Canva.
Yeah.
She faced incredible skepticism. We're talking over 100 rejections from investors.
100? That's relentless. What were the doubts?
Mostly around the market size.
Yeah.
Investors were like, who actually needs a design program for non-designers? They just didn't see the potential.
It's funny looking back, knowing how huge that market turned out to be. But yeah, creating a new category is always harder to sell.
But Melanie she didn't take no for an answer. That seems to be a theme.
Clearly.
She kept refining the pitch deck, learning from every no. She called raising capital a boot camp.
I can imagine. Each rejection forces you to sharpen your arguments, anticipate objections. It makes it tougher.
Definitely. Then came a turning point. 2011, she connects with Bill Tai, a big-name investor.
Okay, a potential breakthrough.
Well, the first meetings in Silicon Valley were interesting. She pitched the future of publishing, apparently with a printed business plan.
Maybe not the typical SV pitch deck.
Right. And she tells this story where Bill seemed more interested in his phone during one meeting.
Ouch. That sounds discouraging.
But get this, turns out he was actually texting, trying to line up a tech team for her.
No way. So what looked like disinterest was actually help.
Exactly. Shows you can't always judge by appearances. Anyway, Bill introduced her to Lars Rasmussen.
Google Maps co-founder Lars Rasmussen.
The very same. He became an advisor, and he really stressed the need for a top-tier tech team. Canva's vision was technically complex.
That makes sense. You need the engineering firepower to build something scalable and sophisticated, even if it looks simple to the user.
Which led them to Cameron Adams, ex-Google engineer.
Ah, the third co-founder.
Right. But he wasn't sold immediately. Apparently, he wasn't looking to join a startup.
So she had to convince him.
She did. It took persistence.
Yeah.
But eventually, he came on board as chief product officer. His tech expertise was absolutely vital.
Another example of her perseverance, right? Identifying the right person and not giving up.
And here's a slightly unconventional part of the funding story. To connect more with Bill Tai and other potential investors, she and Cliff learned to kitesurf.
They learned to kitesurf just to network.
Yep. They went to a kite surfing event in Maui where Bill and others would be.
Just about going the extra mile.
That dedication. And probably a pretty good way to build rapport outside a formal meeting. Memorable, at least.
It seemed to work. It helped build relationships, gain that early interest. And finally, first quarter of 2013, after all those pitches,
The breakthrough.
they closed their first official seed round, $3 million.
After over 100 no's. Wow. And interestingly, the Australian government also chipped in significantly early on through a commercialization program. That helped them stay based in Australia initially.
That's a great point about government support sometimes playing a crucial role.
And one more thing that's kind of counter-narrative. Canva wasn't really a lean startup in the typical sense. Meaning they'd already been running Fusion books successfully, profitably for 5 years before they got major VC money for Canva.
Right, so they had years of real-world business experience, revenue, lessons learned before the big Canva push, not just an idea and a pitch deck.
Exactly. A different path, but clearly effective. Okay, so they get funded, they have the team.
Yeah.
But the challenges didn't stop there.
Building something truly disruptive never goes smoothly, does it?
Nope. Melanie talks about this incredibly tough 2-year period.
Sure.
They basically had to completely redevelop Canva's core code from scratch.
2 years.
Why? To enable scalability, mostly. And things like real-time collaboration, which are huge now. But imagine being a product company and basically shipping no major new features for 2 years.
Oof. While competitors are moving fast, that sounds terrifying.
She called it being in a dark, dark tunnel. Just head down, rebuilding the foundations, hoping it would pay off.
That takes serious conviction in the long-term vision. A massive gamble.
And then, even when they launched the first version, another unexpected hurdle, user testing.
What happened?
People were scared to even click the buttons.
Scared of a design tool meant to be simple.
Yeah. It wasn't just about the tool's ease of use. It tapped into people's fundamental lack of confidence in their own creativity. They felt intimidated by the whole idea of designing something.
That's fascinating. So the problem wasn't just technical, it was psychological.
Exactly. So they realized they didn't just need a simple tool. They needed to build user confidence.
How did they tackle that?
Cleverly. They introduced these 5 starter challenges, little gamified tasks.
Like tutorials.
Sort of, but more about quick wins. Like drag a hat onto a monkey picture, change a color. Super simple things to show people, hey, you can do this. It's not scary.
That's brilliant. Addressing the emotional barrier directly, empowering the user, not just giving them features.
Totally. A real game changer in understanding their users. Then, of course, the world changed dramatically with COVID-19.
Right, a devastating time globally, but for certain online businesses.
It was an accelerator. Suddenly, everyone needed to communicate visually online. Businesses, schools, individuals.
And Canva was perfectly positioned, wasn't it? The need for easy online design tools just exploded.
Absolutely. It amplified the problem Canva was built to solve. Their growth, already strong, just went into hyperdrive.
It sounds like their company culture played a role too. You mentioned crazy big goals.
Yeah, they have this internal thing about setting huge goals and this two-step plan.
2 steps, which are...
Step 1, build a really valuable company. Step 2, do the most good possible.
that blend of business success and social impact.
Exactly. That mission seems to drive a lot of their decisions, their expansion, their investments in things like education.
Interesting. And what about Melanie personally through all this? Building a unicorn, that takes a toll. You mentioned she's an introvert.
Yeah, describes herself as a true introvert, which makes launching a global company, pitching investors, leading thousands, quite a feat. She consciously had to push past that.
It shows that leadership isn't one personality type, right? You find ways to make your style work.
She also found specific tools helpful. Things like writing letters to herself, meditation, use the Calm app, philosophical meditation, the 5-minute journal.
Mindfulness and reflection tools.
Yeah, and spending time in nature, basically finding ways to manage the immense pressure and stay grounded.
Crucial for any founder, I'd imagine. That resilience muscle needs support.
And despite the massive success, the valuation,
Yeah.
she and Cliff seem incredibly focused on giving back. They've pledged the majority of their wealth.
Through the Canva Foundation, right.
Yeah. A huge commitment to philanthropy, driven by, it seems, a real sense of social justice.
That's impressive. It grounds the success in a larger purpose.
There's also this anecdote about Cameron Adams, the CPO. Just before launch, he got hit by a taxi.
Oh my God. Was he okay?
Thankfully, yes. But he still came into the office, apparently, with stitches to keep coding for the launch.
Wow. That speaks volumes about the team's dedication in those early days, that all-in mentality.
Totally. And Cliff, her co-founder, talks about Melanie's vision and determination. He has this great quote about her,
What's that?
that she has this ability to keep walking through walls until they find a door.
That sums it up pretty well, doesn't it? Just relentless persistence against obstacles.
Absolutely. So wrapping this up, thinking about the key takeaways from her journey. Number 1 has to be resilience, right?
Oh, definitely. Over 100 rejections, not giving up, using the no's to get better. That's huge.
Second, identifying that real, widespread problem design being too complex and creating such a simple, elegant solution.
And crucially, understanding it wasn't just about the tool, but about empowering users, building their confidence. That was a masterstroke.
Yeah, that insight about confidence is key. And you see the result in their growth, nearly 90% organic. People just loved the free product and told others.
That's the dream, isn't it? Product-led growth at that scale speaks volumes about the value they provide.
And finally, just that unwavering commitment to the vision. Through the tech rebuild, the competition, the personal challenges, belief carried them through.
It really shows that success isn't about having all the connections or the perfect background. It's about vision, perseverance, courage.
Which brings us back to our theme, turning no into yes. Melanie Perkins embodies that. Even without a tech background initially, or all the Silicon Valley ties, she built something incredible.
Her story is a powerful reminder that the path is often messy, full of setbacks, but learning, adapting, and just keeping going, that's often the difference maker.
So the final thought for everyone listening, think about those big goals you might have put on the shelf, the ones that feel maybe a bit impossible.
The ones where you fear rejection or feel you don't have the right resources.
Exactly. How does hearing Melanie's story, the walls she walked through, the no's she overcame, maybe inspire a different look at those goals? What doors might open if you just keep walking?
Something definitely worth pondering.
Thanks so much for tuning in to Money Talks.